We got to bring Tony Dungy in after that. After that one, Coach, welcome to the program. First of all, where'd you watch the game?
I watched it actually in the hotel room. I was worried about the weather, and it wasn't bad yesterday. Now today is terrible. The NFL dodged the bullet. If today was the game, obviously it'd be a different story. But yeah, we were in the hotel and had a good view on TV.
What did you expect when that game started?
I thought it would be close all the way through. I thought it would be low scoring. And I didn't think Seattle would dominate on defense the way they did. I thought Denver would move the ball a little bit better. I did think Percy Harvin could be a big factor because Denver, all the kickoffs in the mile-high altitude are touchbacks. So you got a team that wasn't used to covering kicks, hadn't had to cover too many, and Percy Harvin with the fresh legs. So I don't think I would have gone to the men's room on that second half kickoff.
How do you prepare for Percy Harvin when he's only played 2 games all year with the Seahawks?
Well, you know what he can do. Now, the problem is getting somebody to simulate that. I guess they had Trenton Holiday, where you could practice against that. But that's the thing that shocks you, just the size and speed and athleticism. You see it on tape, and they could have gone back and looked at Minnesota video. But having somebody to actually demonstrate it in practice is really hard to come by.
And at halftime, it was 22-0 before that Harvin kick return. You've got an extended opportunity. What do you do during that if you're the Denver Broncos to try to turn this thing around?
Defensively, they really weren't playing that badly. They had given up a couple of field goal drives, and so if you're John Fox, you say, hey, we just got to get some stops, some takeaways, but we're doing okay. Offensively, we've got to find some rhythm. We've got to get some – I thought they had to take the ball upfield more. What Seattle, it looked like to me, was saying, we don't think these guys can throw deep balls on us. We're going to squeeze. We're going to sit down on everything. We're going to tackle these short crosses. And they needed to get some things up the field, and they just never were able to do that.
How surprised were you by the first snap of the game by the Denver Broncos with the ball whizzing by Peyton Manning's head?
I was a little surprised at that. You feel like you've worked your whole 2 weeks on your game plan. You've known for a few days what the first play of the game is going to be. They've dealt with noise before and silent snap count, and that was just set the trend for the day, and it snowballed from there.
Visiting with Tony Dungy of Football Night in America, former Colts and Buccaneers coach. You've talked before about how obsessed Peyton Manning was preparing for the weather. When you won Super Bowl 41 in Miami, it rained the entire game. Is it possible that the Broncos weren't prepared for the noise they were going to be dealing with in that end of the stadium?
No, I think they knew that. Even a normal Super Bowl, we went into 41 with a silent snap count and knowing that you're going to, depending on where you are, the stadium is half full of your fans, half full of the opponent's fans, but you anticipate the silent count, and I don't think it was a noise issue at all. I think it was just nerves in the opening snap. I believe the way they do it, one of the guards tells the center when to snap the ball, and he just was ready to go, and didn't realize they were in an audible situation, and again, probably just hyped up and being a little too pumped for that first play.
What do you think this outcome does to how Peyton Manning will be viewed?
Well, I'm sure everybody's going to say, we told you so, and here it goes again, put up all the stats in the regular season, but can't do it in the big games. Well, last week, the AFC Championship game was a big game. All the playoff games are a big game. So to say, well, you played well twice and threw for 400 yards against New England, but you couldn't do it in the Super Bowl. I'm sure they'll be part of that, but I just thought Seattle played outstanding. They smothered them. They suffocated them. Peyton had a couple of bad throws, a couple of bad interceptions, but that's life. That's football.
He's Tony Dungy, NBC's Football Night in America. Peyton was asked after the game whether it was an embarrassing outcome, and he said that's an insulting thought. What do we call it, though, from the Broncos' perspective? What's the right label to apply?
Oh, I promise you it's embarrassing. You come in and you feel like you're going to win, and worst case scenario, you think, hey, we'll get beat at the end of the game. You never in your wildest imagination, you can't even perceive thinking about a game where you lose 43-8. So, that's a tough one, and it'll be interesting to see how they bounce back off it. They had a great year, but you don't expect to lose that game, and I'm sure it's it might be insulting, but it is an honest question because I'm sure they're very embarrassed.
Where does this Seahawks defense rank all time?
I think it's a little too early to tell. They've played great. They've got a great young team. If they can keep them together and continue to grow, I think they'll have a chance to build a reputation. But, let's not put them with the 85 Bears just yet. We've seen and I'll say this, shutting down that offense. I mean, this was a high-powered, potent offense. Remind me a lot of San Francisco against Dan Marino. I thought the same thing. Marino would go in there and put up 30 points on them, and they shut them down. And that San Francisco defense continued to play well for a long while. This is a young, fast, very good defense. Now they've got to continue to put it together.
There's been a lot of discussion and debate about the MVP award from Super Bowl 48. Who would you have given it to?
I think I would have gone with Cliff Averill or Cam Chancellor. They gave him the energy early in the game. Averill made 2 plays. The first interception was the result of his pass rush. The second interception was the same thing for the touchdown. Cam Chancellor had some big hits, had an interception early. Once it's 22-0, to me, what happens after that is kind of irrelevant. But I would have gone with one of those 2 guys.
He's Tony Dungy, NBC's Football Night in America. How much longer do you think Peyton Manning has?
I think he can play 4 to 5 more years if he's mentally into it and ready to prepare as he has in the past. I saw an interview where he said, the twins and being a parent has changed him. And I don't think physically it's going to be a problem to play 4 more years, but it'll just be where he is in terms of his off-season preparation. I do promise you this, he's not going to want to go out on a game like this, so he'll be back for at least 1 more.
One of the topics we've been discussing today, would you rather lose in a blowout like what happened last night, or would you rather have a game come down to the wire and lose it that way?
I don't think it really matters. At the end of the day, you lost the game, but you don't want to go into a Super Bowl and then feel like you never gave your team a chance or you never had an opportunity to be in it. So for me, I think I'd rather have played a lot better and lost the game at the wire.
Also over the weekend, another one of your former players made it into the Hall of Fame. Talk about Derrick Brooks making it first ballot for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Very excited for Derrick, and certainly well-deserved. He was the best linebacker, cover linebacker in football during that time period in the 90s and early 2000s. Really kind of set a model for what everybody else was looking for, a guy who could run and hit and play against the run but stay on the field 3 downs and make impacting plays without rushing the passer, and it's certainly well-deserved. I was, of course, disappointed for Marvin Harrison. I thought, catching almost 6 balls a game for throughout his career, and the numbers he put up and the way he played and dominated the position, really just playing one spot on the right outside where everybody knew where he was going to line up and still had trouble stopping him. I thought he should have been a first ballot member too, but I was excited for Derrick.
Wrapping up with Tony Dungy of NBC's Football Night in America, give me one change you would make to the sport of football at the NFL level, on or off the field, this offseason.
Well, I really think they have to look at the off-season preparation. I was concerned with the number of injuries early in the season, and I know the players are worried about safety and also not being around the office too much in the off season, but I think they have to look at that so it doesn't go too far the other way where we're not doing any conditioning, any work in the off season, and then have all these major injuries early on in August and September.
You think we're going to get to the point where there's a strike zone for receivers who have just caught a pass where you can't be hit either above the neck or below the waist?
I'm sure they're going to try to implement that, just as they've done with quarterbacks. But the problem is the quarterback is a fairly stationary target, and you can tell a defensive lineman, under the shoulder pads, above the knees. But a receiver is coming at different angles. They're diving. They're laying out for balls. That's a moving target. And I think it's a great idea to have a strike zone, but it's hard to stay in that zone and make plays. So I don't know what the compromise is. But I think we'll definitely have something to protect those lower leg hits and the head hits.
Looking at the AFC for next season, I'm having a hard time finding a team that's going to challenge the Denver Broncos. I think they're going to be right back where they were this year.
I think so, too, because you look at the defenses, and the great defenses are in the NFC. I didn't think there was anybody playing that caliber of defense in the AFC. So in order to maybe dethrone the Broncos, it's got to be somebody who can come up and slow them down and stop them, and I don't know where that comes from.
Well, great stuff, Tony. Thanks for giving us some time. Safe travels back to Tampa, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Mike. Looking forward to being with you once again next year.
All right. Thanks, Tony. Same here.